Hello. In the last video, Bill Nye was talking about the oceans and the different amounts of salt in the ocean water. Some areas of the ocean have more salt, and some areas of the ocean have less salt. And he had briefly mentioned why the oceans are salty. And he had said erosion. It's erosion that actually brings down the minerals and what we think of as the salts into the ocean. And this happened over all of Earth's history since there's been oceans, so for the last 4 billion years. This image here shows you that idea. So we've got erosion as part of this process, but really what happens is you have either wind or rain or snow that drops some kind of water, either frozen water or liquid water. And that starts to move downhill. And as it moves downhill, creating streams and rivers, they break off pieces of the land, little bits of debris from the land. As that debris moves down with the water, eventually it makes its way all the way to the ocean. Once it gets down to the ocean here, that debris gets broken down more and more and more and more. And that makes up the salts that we recognize and know of in our ocean. So erosion does lead to the salty ocean. So in the Earth's early history, the oceans weren't as salty as they are now. All right, let's take a look at an example of actual erosion in the Hawaiian Islands. So we've been talking about the Hawaiian Islands and how the Hawaiian Islands were formed and why there's a difference in size of the Hawaiian Islands. This is really what gets to that difference in size that we see along the whole chain. So if you take a look at this picture, this is in Kauai, and I'll show you on a map where Kauai is here pretty soon. But Kauai is famous for its scenery, and you can see why. If you look at these hillsides and these cliffs, you've got these deep, really deep valleys or fissures that are going down the sides of this mountain. And in the background, same thing, really deep, deep canyons. And what happens is, over time, erosion starts to eat away at those mountains. So rain falls on the mountains, and that rainwater starts to move down the mountain, picking up debris and dirt and stuff as it goes. And that over time, over long periods of time, creates these big fissures that you see, these big valleys that you see, very dramatic, especially here on Kauai. And that's going to attack some of the softest rock first and leave some of the hardest rock left behind. All right, so here's the map of Hawaii. At least these are the main islands. Originally we showed you, or I showed you the Hawaiian island chain that went past Kauai and out towards Midway, and you saw the islands getting smaller and smaller. This still, even the main Hawaiian islands, you can see this trend. We just looked at Kauai, which is out here. Okay, that's to the northwest. And Kauai is the one that had all those mountains with the really deep, deep valleys caused by erosion. Next, we're going to look at the big island of Hawaii, and that is to the southeast. This is the most active, volcanically active Hawaiian island. And you'll see in the news all the time that there will be eruptions coming from these volcanoes that make up the big island of Hawaii. And we're going to take a look at an image here in a moment of Maunaloa, which is one of the volcanoes. Okay, so we're on the big island of Hawaii. This is Maunaloa, one of the volcanoes there. This looks a lot different than Kauai that you saw with those deep valleys. Maunaloa does not have those same deep valleys. It's going to have some, because Maunaloa still has been around for a while. But for the most part, it creates this big dome shape. And you can see as the mountain goes down towards the ocean, I mean, it's relatively flat when you compare it to Kauai. It has some valleys, like it looks like there's a valley here and maybe a valley here. where the water has eroded parts of the land away. But for the most part, it's a gentle slope down to the ocean. And this is because it's volcanically active. New lava spills out over time, creating this nice new landscape, where Kauai hasn't been volcanically active in a long time. So all that it's been doing is eroding. And that's really where we get to the key difference in size of the islands. The Big Island is the most volcanically active. It's the newest island, and it's still going through erosion, but it's also adding land all the time in the form of lava. The further away you get from the Big Island, the less volcanically active those islands get. So they don't have new lava coming up. They don't have new material that's adding to the island. All that's happening now is erosion on those islands that are further away, like Kauai. And if you go way out, like Midway Atoll, and there's a couple other small islands out way at the end of the chain. We can see some dramatic footage here, or dramatic images of erosion that's happening along a coastal area or a beach. And this is really when it comes into conflict where people live. So you see all these houses that were built at a certain time in the past, maybe 20, 30 years ago, when it wasn't so close to the cliff. But over time, the ocean water has worn away those cliffs, has broken those cliffs down, caused the land and the material there to fall away into the ocean, getting those houses closer and closer to the cliff as the cliff moves towards them. And eventually, those houses will have to be demolished, or otherwise they'll fall off into the beach and then eventually into the ocean. So another image that's like that is right here. And you can see there's no houses here, but you can see where that huge piece of land finally broke off from that main part of the coast there and has fallen into the ocean. And then the waves and the ocean water will just continue to wear it down over time. And this is what makes an island like Kauai smaller and smaller and smaller over time.